Tattoo. Oliver. Go cute ya. Oliver. Cute ya. Oliver, what's that called? No, it's called tattoo. Woke up this morning to a nice surprise from Deefer. He left a big old poopy in the dining room. I think he was miffed that I didn't pick him up and put him on the bed, so he left, went and did his poop, and then sat on the couch downstairs in my office area. So that was a nice surprise this morning. About when do you know when it's time to kind of start your own company and do your own thing versus continuing to learn at the feet of people who you've hold in higher esteem and you think are better business people or have certain skill sets that you don't have. And I think it's easy for me for sure, but I'm sure for other people as well to feel like, oh, I need to learn the skill and I need to learn from this person, see how they do it. I need to get this MBA, or I need to go and learn, coding or something before I'm allowed to go in and run my own thing and pursue what I want. And I think there's definitely something to obviously continuing to gain skill sets, but ultimately, you just have to decide that you're going to do this thing and launch it and just kind of see how it all plays out, because what you learn from that experience is going to be more than probably more valuable than what you learn from someone else. And finally, you can shape the business to be in your vision, and you're going to be right or you're going to be wrong, right? The market will tell you. But when you're working from someone else, you're contracted out to execute on their vision, and their vision is different from yours. And there's something there that I can't quite articulate yet, but this idea that the business that you create is going to be a reflection of your principles and your values, and you're the only one with that kind of distinct, unique voice. And so the business that you create may not be the right business for someone else, but it could be the right one for you. And when you go into someone else's business, there's that just lack of, it's just not your vision, right? So you're just not going to put the same amount of heart into it, or the stakes just are not as high, because it's not wrapped up in you and your identity and how you think a business should be run. So I don't know, just kind of some early thoughts on when it's time for you to do your own thing and when it's time to continue to learn.
So hold on, I'm gonna stop it.
Yeah.
So you're gonna come across and then drive it. There you go. Boom and up. Yep. Boom. Up. Boom. Up. Keep it rolling. Yeah, there you go. Good.
One of the things that I really don't enjoy doing is writing about writing, but one of the things that I really don't like to do is write about writing. I think that there are plenty of resources that talk about the craft of writing. When I think about the #1 book that covers the topic, I think about Stephen King's On Writing, and he basically covered it all. So I really try to avoid writing or talking about it whenever I can. However, sometimes there are certain conversations that are really helpful in thinking about why I have chosen to record and write about as much as possible. And hopefully this is useful. And if normally what you read or visit my stuff for about is more about productivity or marketing or career advice, then you'll forgive me for this brief aside. had a conversation with my trainer today, and we were talking about growing up Asian in the United States and what that experience has looked like. And it reminded me of this story of when I was much younger, maybe in middle school. I remember going to visit my cousins, and some of the conversations that they had with their father, he would talk about how he worked something in software. I don't remember exactly what. I don't think he was an engineer, but he worked with software, and he would do a lot of meetings over telephone. And he said that people were always surprised when they met face to face in person, and they saw that he was Chinese. And he says he could see it. He could see the surprise in their eyes and how it affected their view on him as a professional. And so it was just interesting to listen to him have that conversation with his kids, and all of us talk about it on a broader perspective. And it made me think about conversations with my own father, who through high school, probably through college, I don't ever remember him having a conversation with us about specific things that happened in his career that may have held him back because he was Chinese. There was maybe like one or two stories here and there where he knew that he was being considered for promotion, but it was difficult because he still had a accent. And like, other than that accent story, my dad has never talked or used his race as a like quote unquote excuse to as an excuse for not achieving any of his goals. Not to say that my uncle, who I brought up earlier, was using it as an excuse, but just like the idea of having this conversation never really came up between my dad and myself. And I think what happened was, it was very much a double-edged sword, because on the positive side, he set the example for not giving yourself an out or an excuse when you don't reach your goals. Like, he was never one to point to his ethnicity or someone else's perceived racism as a reason why he didn't get promoted, or they didn't come into the restaurant, or he was treated differently from someone else. Like, never brought it up. And there are definitely times where it has happened, right? But he just didn't, I don't know if he didn't see it, or it just wasn't in his purview, or if he chose to ignore it, right? So that has definitely influenced the way I think about work, and I think about the career choices, and I think about how people interact with me. Like, their choices are their choices and has nothing to do with me. But on the other edge of the sword, it was difficult when confronted with the fact that I'm definitely being treated differently because I'm Asian, because I'm Chinese American. I realized that by not having those conversations, I didn't have the tools mentally to think about how to react and how to process that. And I think it led to a lot of just confusion when I was in middle school and in high school, and then until I was in college when I got to have more of those conversations. So it's not that so much that it hindered me, but I would have appreciated having those conversations to understand what it looked like and have a different perspective outside of my own on how to deal with those kind of situations. Situations like being asked one time in high school, like, would I have preferred to have been born white, right? Things like that. Like, not necessarily overt racism, but a tendency to be treated like an other because I look different. And so I just never had those tools to deal with those kind of situations, because my dad and I didn't have those conversations about race, about what it's like growing up Chinese in America. And so my trainer and I had this conversation, and as I was thinking about it, it made me realize that it's important to have these conversations, it's not important just to have it with my son, but it's important to have that conversation with other people who may be white, who may be white Americans, and they may not have that perspective, and it's important to share that perspective with them, because otherwise they don't really understand they aren't able to see it from our shoes. And so I think what I'm getting at is why, when asked about why write, like, that's it. Like, not that everything is going to be about race or about like the perspective as a Chinese American approaching career and approaching relationships, approaching money. However, there's no way around the fact that being Chinese American has affected all the decisions I've made about my relationships, about my finances, about how I pursue my career. Like, it colors everything. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that it does color everything. And so I do think it's important to share as much as possible, because my perspective is different from, let's just take money, right? Like, or career. Let's take career. My perspective on careers is different because of the upbringing and the experiences that I had. And even though it may have been talked about by other people, it hasn't been quite covered from that perspective and that lens and shaped by those experiences. And if I write about it and it helps one person who came from a similar background, then it's definitely worth it. And so, there's just some things that I've been thinking about after having that conversation with Anthony. You just don't know who it will help, these things that you write and that you put out into the world. It's not like, and it's not about being offended, right? You don't have to be offended, you don't have to yell, but you do need to speak up. And I think there's something powerful about that, and there's like this obligation to do so. Without his mama, baby llama wants a drink. Mama's at the kitchen sink. Llama, llama, red pajama calls down to his llama mama. Mama says she'll be up soon. Baby llama hums a tune. Llama, llama, red pajama, waiting for his mama. Mama isn't coming yet. Baby llama starts to fret. Llama, llama, red pajama whimpers softly for his mama. Mama llama hears the phone. Baby llama starts to moan. Llama, llama, red pajama listens quiet for his mama. What is Mama llama doing? Baby llama starts boo-hoo-hooing. Uh-oh. Llama, llama, red pajama hollers loudly for his mama. Baby llama stomps and pouts. Baby llama jumps and shouts. Llama, llama, red pajama in the dark without his mama. Eyes wide open, covers drawn. What if Mama llama's gone? Llama, llama, red pajama, weeping, wailing for his mama. Will his mama ever come? Mama llama, run, run, run! Ah, she's running. Baby llama, what a tizzy. Sometimes mama's very busy. Please stop all this llama drama and be patient for your mama. Little llama, don't you know? Mama llama loves you so. Mama llama's always near, even if she's not right here. Llama, llama, red pajama gets 2 kisses from his mama. Snuggles pillow soft and deep. Baby llama goes to sleep. The end. What is the